Well, hello everybody. How are you feeling?
Woo! Yeah.
Feel good? You had some pizza? You had some happiness? Some food? Excellent. My name is Tejas. That's pronounced like contagious. Fun fact, I actually am, I probably might be contagious, so don't touch me today. I was a little bit sick. I didn't go to work, but I came here because meetups are more fun than work, let's be honest. Speaking of work, I work at Contiamo until November 30th and then no more. This is where people would say we're hiring in the Meetup talks, but I don't know if we are. Maybe, actually I left, so I think we are. And I work with some of these people. These people are amazing. I love this team, and they're not the reason I'm leaving. I'm leaving for other reasons.
Where are you going?
That's a good question. We'll do questions at the end. But these people, I love them. I work with them. In fact, one specifically is here today. This guy, he's right there. Woo! Misha. He came to us from a C# background and wanted to get into web dev. He's the greatest, one of the greatest engineers I know. Anyway, but we're here today to talk about TypeScript. It's a TypeScript meetup. And if you know about me or the things I talk about, usually I say, hey, I like TypeScript. I literally use React and TypeScript every single day, and I've never looked back and been happy. Now, I have looked back at JavaScript times, and it brought pain. Mainly because I cannot read properties, something of undefined, or that's null, or this doesn't exist. How many of you use TypeScript in production? Okay, that's almost everybody. Your hands went down when I said in production. And how many of you? I use it on Saturday. How many of you use Flow at work? Oh, just like 3. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I'd like to see it go up. Facebook is actually investing more into Flow, so it might, I kind of agree. But anyway, I say these things, and other people. I also teach people about TypeScript. So a good friend of mine, Joe Peretti, was kind of really riding the JavaScript train, and his name on Twitter was JavaScript Joe. It is now TypeScript Joe. And part of it is because I showed him the value about it, and it was just a really great thing. And some people just want to get in my presentations. So they think if they just say something about TypeScript, they'll be here. But anyway, today we're here to talk about TypeScript, and specifically, really practically what you can do with it and why use it. If we look at some statistics, a lot of people have heard about it and would like to learn it. So what is that? That's like 37, I can't read this, but the dark blue thing is people who have heard of it and who would like to learn it. That's a huge number. And also across the world, I gave this talk at React Finland, a lot of people, 45% of people in Finland and generally around Europe would like to get into TypeScript. Yeah, exactly.
No one want to learn it? Yeah, that's a lot of people.
That's a ton of people. And so why is TypeScript this topic? Why are these numbers the way they are? Why do I like it so much? Why does Joe now change his name? And there's a whole bunch of slides after this that are theoretical, but let's have some fun. I want to show you practically why we like TypeScript. And if you don't, or if you're just getting into it, that first talk was really nice about some of the more advanced things you can do. But I find myself day to day, every single day at my work, not working with such advanced things. I will work with generics, but by and large, as is the case with a good relationship or marriage, it's the little things. It's when you ask how my day was. It's the little things that TypeScript just makes your life better with. And so I'm going to kill the slideshow here. There's, as you can see, there's whatever. But let's just go improv and open code Sandbox. And what I want to do is I want to show you practically how TypeScript can help. And let's just open a React Sandbox here. I've never done this before. It's part of what makes it fun. And so what we have, can everybody see this? Is this clear? Now? Now? We don't really need this. Can I hide this thing? There. Okay, now I can make it a little bit bigger. This everybody should be able to see. Come on. And so now this is a JavaScript project. And right off the bat, I want to say why TypeScript? Because it's not. It is trivial to adopt. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to encode Sandbox here, add a new, not a folder, add a new file, and let's call it tsconfig index.json. And that's it. I'm in TypeScript. And what I do is I take this JavaScript file, I rename it to index.ts, or actually it's a React file, so we'll rename it to index.tsx. And that's essentially it. I'm now using TypeScript in Code Sandbox with just renaming files. I already get to enjoy this. Now that we have that, let's see how we can use React with TypeScript. How many of you use React? Probably most. In production. Okay, good. So what we'll do is I want to show you, by creating a React component with TypeScript, some of the ways you can make your team happy and other developers, if you're doing open source, other developers happy. Let's use a typical use case of a design system. If you want to make a table, a React table component, you can't, let's see, let's get rid of this. Oh, what's this? Something's broken? It's hard reload that usually fixes things. Oh, look, it did. It works. I don't know why. It doesn't work. I don't know why. Great. So now you see these red underlines because I don't have TypeScript definitions for React and React DOM. So I'll just add them right here. This is the first time I've ever done an entire talk in Code Sandbox. This is really fun. Add types, and then we'll add React DOM as well. And now after those install, these errors will go away. If they don't go away, I will hard reload again. And now they go away. Perfect. If you work at Code Sandbox, I'm sorry. Doing my best. Oh, they're still there. Can only be, okay, yeah, I need to change some config stuff. It's called yak shaving. What am I changing? I want to add allow, yeah, okay. I tried to make it look easy, but sometimes, you have to know some stuff. And we will, module resolution is node. I think this is all we need, actually, just one line. Does it work? No? Hard reload again? Okay, no, it's fine, it works. Great. So now we're in React, everything, and in TypeScript, everything's great. And let's see, if we want to use a table, I'll just keep this example here. Instead of Code Sandbox, let's say TypeScript Berlin. And what I'll do is I'll create a table, and I'll have a table header first with some table header things. So we'll say name and job and happiness level. I hope that's 100 for everybody. Great, so we have a table, and now let's add some rows to the table. So TD, and this is just, this is HTML, everybody knows this. Let's start with me, Tejas. Job is, I don't know, like quit Contiamo. That's a little bit awkward, isn't it? And happiness level is like greater than greater than whatever that is. Perfect. And so then if we have a lot of other rows, we can just repeat this as many times as we want. Misha, my coworker, and TD still at Contiamo. And he's also super happy, I hope. Is he happy? He is. Great. Okay, so we have a table, we have some stuff. The table looks a little bit ugly, but that's fine. What I want to show us is how we can expose a nice, the first talk talked about something called the Dream API, right? So how can we expose a nice API for this? Because if the use case, if you're building an app with React, is you usually don't have a way to just write tr, td, and so on for every row in your data set. You fetch something from the back end, you get back an array of objects. These objects have homogeneous schemas, so your object of a user will have an ID property, a name, a job, and so on, and you iterate over them. So if we want to make this React-ish, we want to give it a nice API, how do we do that? Step one, we'll create a table component. Equals, we'll use TypeScript and annotate that. We'll say it is a FC, or a function component, and we will say it's a table. And you know what? I'm just going to take my JSX here and paste it in that. Okay, so really nothing simple. And then I'll just use the table component that I've created. So table. Everything should, exactly. It's exactly what I want. But what I want to give it is a property that says data is data. And I want my data to not be a bunch of, this is coupling the DOM with actual data. I want to separate it. And by the way, since this is Prisma, it's something Prisma does really well, make data easy. And so let's say I get data from a backend API. We'll just mock it here. Data is same thing. Tejas, job is quit. So I'm just mapping the data here. And happiness is, let's just give it a number type in this case. Misha, still, I don't mean to pick on Misha, but he's just, he's twice as happy as I am. And my good friend, no, really? Okay, I was going to do Omeo, but whatever.
We have the same last name as.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do Quit Wayfair. Whackfair. And he's also super happy. Okay, so we have some names, some data from the backend, and what I really want as my dream API for this is to just pass in data and have it render the data. So how do we do this? For starters, I need to get from my props data, but immediately it's like, whoa, what's this? Data doesn't exist. It doesn't know that the component expects a data prop. We can fix that by using, from the first talk, if you remember generics, this function component is a generic type that takes props that you expect the component to receive. So we'll say I expect data to be an array of records where name is string, job is string, happiness is a number. Now this is getting a little bit hard to read, so what we can do is take this object, it's actually an interface, and we'll extract it to interface table props, okay? And if I save, please, prettier, please do your thing, no? Okay.
Equals, man. The commas for.
Commas what?
Semicolons, I think.
It's fine. It's totally fine. I don't really know why prettier just doesn't want to help me. I don't see any errors here. Okay, so anyway, it works. Everything's compiling. And if I go down here, data is data, it's great. But what happens if I want to pass some other data and I can't, I'm locked. I also notice I'm not really using the data here. So let's change this a bit and say for my TRs, I don't need 2 rows, I'll use 1, and I will map. So I will say data.map row, and I need a key, so I will use, okay. Now everything's fine except it's all the same because it's still hard-coded strings. So I will do row.name, row.job, and lastly row.happiness. And now it's working. But this component, what's the problem with this component? Who can tell me what the problem is? Nobody really? Coupling schema. It's coupled. It's not reusable. This is a huge problem. It's not really reusable. How nice would it be if it was reusable? We can pass in anything, and it could even filter on columns. So we could, what if I want an API that says these are the columns I want to show, and they're just an array of strings. I want to show name. I want to show job. I can't really do that right now because, well, columns doesn't exist. So how would we change the component to do that? For starters, let's go here. Let's add a columns prop. So columns, let's just say it's an array of strings for now. And everything's fine. Everything's compiling again. What we'll do then is we'll take the table header and we'll iterate over columns. And I'm saying I just want these columns in my table, okay? Columns dot map column index, and I will render a th with data with the column, just the column, and the key is I. Okay, everything's fine. So I said I want name, job, and then there's really no correlation between this and this. It's a bit of a problem because I could change this to be happiness, for example. And what I see is inconsistent data. So what I want is a way to tie the rows with the columns. What I want is to say row. What I want is to map over the columns prop here in this cell data and do this. and say row of this. That's what I want. And it kind of works, except this is invalid. It just says happiness. It doesn't really know what columns are available to me. And here's an example. So if I just start a string, it's an empty string. What I want to do is I want this columns prop to be auto-completion based on the data I pass in. Does that make sense? I want the developer experience. How do I do that? Well, I could just use an enum type. I'm see like, okay, I have name, I have job, I have happiness. And so I will use a union of name or job, or happiness, okay? And now it doesn't work because it's supposed to be an array of these. Okay, everything's fine. And look, it works. I get my autocomplete. Perfect. It absolutely works. But it's still not reusable. So I get happiness. Look, it works, but all of this stuff in my interface is hard-coded. What if I get back data from one API endpoint and another one, and I want to reuse the same component? This is where we use what? Who said that? Show me your hand. We use generics, exactly. And we make the component reusable. To make it reusable, truly reusable, we have to make it generic and use generics. And so for that, we say data is not an array of this hard-coded thing, but data is T. What is T? There's this convention to use T for type parameter in generics. I think, why? It's a little bit confusing. So we'll actually say, sorry? Because TypeScript, yeah. Let's just call it data. We can even call it generic data to make it even more clear. So data is an array of generic data. To me, this makes a little bit more sense. And columns is key of generic data. And actually it's an array of key of generic data. So there. And now that that's the thing, everything's fine. Except table props here is generic. It requires one type argument. How do we do this? We need to rewrite our TypeScript a little bit. We can't use the const keyword anymore.
Type.
Say that again? Type? Function, exactly. So we would function table, and it is a function that takes a type parameter of, we want to avoid shadowing, so avoid shadowing. Just because why not? And it's a function that does this, and don't ask me. And what it does is it takes these props, we can describe them here, saying they are this interface. We pass the type parameter here. And of course, we can't do an arrow anymore. So braces return there. And so now our component is fully generic, meaning it infers based on whatever I pass in, it can give me autocompletion on the columns. So for example, if I say, this is my data I'm passing in right now, right? It's what is it? It's name, job, happiness. Let's change that. Imagine we're doing a request somewhere else, and we're getting back favorite animal. I don't know. I'm not creative enough, so whatever. Right? And then other metadata, whatever you can imagine. Now what we see is, and this is the beauty of TypeScript, the question we looked at in the beginning was, why TypeScript? Why is it so popular? It's because of this. If you have some refactor somewhere in your app 5 years after you start it, this will break in your CI pipeline, and your customers will never have to deal with errors if you do it correctly. That's huge. We think a lot about developer experience, and I'm showing you this is great developer experience, but the bigger benefit is user experience. People will never see the errors and never have to deal with them. And as we can see here, this red line means it's going to fail. And it's going to fail because the string isn't favorite animal. So I trigger my autocompletion here, and it says request that, and there I do. And it works. So now this component is type safe, bulletproof, reusable. The last question we have with this is, should it be unit tested? And this is a controversial topic. I think yes, use unit test. I don't know if this component should be unit tested, but generally, they're an extra layer of safety. So I would say with TypeScript, you don't write as many unit tests. You still write unit tests, but you write way less because the static analysis has its benefits. With that, the talk was titled, building cool stuff with TypeScript and React. And so this is kind of what it looked like for us. We built an entire design system that I'd love to show to you now if Code Sandbox lets me exit. There we go. It's called Operational UI. And my final task as the person leaving the company is to make this loading experience really fast because as you can see, it takes a really long time. It's our internal documentation, so it doesn't matter, but it still kind of makes me feel pain. I'm just awkwardly talking until this loads because it's very... There we go, okay. The sad thing is it's hosted on Netlify, Netlify, come on. No, I'm kidding. It's us. We're shipping like 25 megabytes here. It's crazy. Anyway, so what I wanted to do is we have this documentation and it was often out of date. We didn't know it. How many of you sometimes have docs that are out of date? All of you. It was just out of date. It's hard because we're focusing on the code and not the documentation. And sometimes I have source code here on GitHub for operational. And we document all of our components really well. Like if you go to button, what you'll see is we're like, these are the buttons, these are what they're used for, and then code snippets. The problem is sometimes the props here were just wrong. They're just like, we deleted a prop, we didn't update a doc, so we added a prop, we didn't document it. And so, for example, disabled could just not exist, and we'd have no idea. Our docs would be out of date. Now, for our documentation, we use something called React Style Guidist, created by this guy right here. Stand up, Atyom. Woo! Amazing, amazing tool. And we use it because here's what it does. It takes this Markdown file and just like magic generates this. This is one-to-one generated from the text. We just write the text and this magic just happens. It's rad. The problem is when our docs are out of date, something weird gets rendered here and it's broken. How can we fix that? What we did internally was an idea by my great coworker, Fabien, good friend, just genius. He said, what if, our docs are broken and if they're JavaScript, there's no real way of telling. What if we made our docs, our interactive playgrounds, TypeScript? And that's kind of what we did here. But to make you fully appreciate this, I'm going to have to use some time travel deployment with Netlify and go to deploy preview 160 maybe, operational ui.netlify.com. Okay, no, 260. This could take a while. Somewhere in the past, we had a design system that was not type safe, and it's very important to show you. We had, yeah, great, this will work just fine. We had these playgrounds, and this looks more like React Style Guidist. We customized it a lot. So this is also generated from the README, and if I click View Code, I have this playground. And this is really great because I can go in here and I can say button, color is success. And it's green. Look, I could say color is error. Red. I could say color is primary. You get the idea. I could do whatever I want. The problem here is this is generated from the docs, as I mentioned. I could say I am invalid. Ha 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 ha. Like evil demon, devil. Come on, where's that purple guy? There we go. I could do this, and it's like, sure, your emoji is invalid, but it doesn't tell me this could be in the docs. We would never know. My coworker said, let's try and put TypeScript here, because TypeScript would catch this. And so what we ended up doing was this is exactly the same docs. But now this code playground is, if this looks familiar to you, this is actually the same engine that powers VS Code. This is the Monaco editor. And we actually do, in fact, build from TypeScript. And so what we'll see is if I say I am invalid at this point, it says, oh, wait, no, it actually is invalid. And it says it doesn't exist on this type. What are you doing? And so what we're able to do is from our source code, we don't maintain the docs anymore at all. We just write source code, and then our docs are up to date. And since it's the same VS Code experience, you can kind of do the same things you would expect from VS Code. Here's an example of something I'm running locally right now. I updated the docs for the avatar component, which is really good, by the way, because, for example, we have something in our avatar that is just not very predictable. We have a size prop, that you would expect it to be like a number. Like I want a 400 pixel wide avatar, but it's like, whoa, this doesn't make any sense. Number is not assignable to small or medium. So our docs tell us actually we only support this, medium or small. And so that's one way we're already winning. But since we get benefits from VS Code, we can also write, here, let me show you some code. That playground you saw was generated from this right here. Let's make this a little bit bigger, okay? And you notice how we have like this comment, size of avatars? It would show here. So if I hover over size, it says size of avatars. You see it right there. We have, what else do we have? We have show name, optionally display the name, this comment. In VS Code, show name, optionally display the name. So whatever you comment above a prop just appears here in TypeScript in VS Code. The cool thing is that supports Markdown. So if I wanted to, I could attach an image here, or maybe more, this is just a random image. I could more meaningfully put a GIF or GIF, I don't know how you say it, here, and show people how to do things. It brings documentation to a whole other level. And so I put that documentation on name. So if I do this, I actually get like this random image, which could be a GIF if you wanted to. It could be anything you want. You have full Markdown support in the browser, in your documentation, with the Monaco editor and React Saga. So this is a tool we built that really helps us every day. Like we have this open source project, and our open source external contributors have been able to really get up to speed and use it very easily because of that. Lastly, I'm almost finished. We have like 3 minutes left. I want to show you a tool we built as well with TypeScript that helps our developer experience. And that is a tool called RESTful React. The gist of it is we're forced to use REST APIs. That's basically. So Prisma here is a company that embraces and enjoys GraphQL. How many of you use GraphQL in production? Okay, so half or so, maybe like 40%. Yeah, how many of you are forced to use REST? Or how many of you just use REST? Wait, that doesn't add up. What if you don't use REST or GraphQL? What do you use? SOAP? RPC? Okay. So we have to use REST. But here's what I want to say about that. It's a lot of teams, I've heard people say, hey, REST is bad. We hate our company because they make us use REST. We don't like it because they make us use SOAP. They make us. But it's a beautiful thing because it's a constraint. And if you're an engineer, this is probably the most important thing I'll say tonight, is constraints. You may hate them, but they're beautiful, okay? I've been a team lead for 4 years, and my team has hated the constraints that I've given them. Pre-commit hooks. Really? We lint on pre-commit. We have CI checks that are exhaustive, and they don't like me sometimes. I have a coworker to this day, Slava. He's like, I don't permit any unused variables. So if you have a variable and it has no purpose in your file, you don't even see a UI. You just get a huge red screen. And I did this for reasons. He hates it. But this constraint, as all constraints, are beautiful. And this was one constraint we had. We lost sleep. We didn't work. Like our app was bulletproof except at this layer, because with REST, you have no type safety. You have no way to predict what the backend could send you. The backend could send you a dancing cat, and you just, good luck. RESTful React brings the benefits of GraphQL to the REST world. GraphQL gives you auto-completion, gives you type safety. You can't really do that with REST unless you use RESTful React and something called Swagger or OpenAPI. OpenAPI is a way to describe a backend service, all of its endpoints, post, put, get, patch, delete. And you just write this really long file, and I can show you one of our OpenAPI. Can I? Should I? You know what? It's like 4,000 lines long. Humans can't read it. And so what we ended up doing was we built something to scan it and create for us type-safe React hooks. And I'd like to show that to you today. Let's start with this. And this will be the last thing I show you. So my project is running at localhost 8080, and it says, hello, TypeScript Meetup. In case that's not big enough, here you go. And let me just open up the editor and look at some code. So what we have here, actually, can I do, let me try and do the 50-50. I think this is something we're going to want to see both at the same time. What is this? Is this new in Catalina? Why? I just wanted to. Thanks. Great. By the way, I updated to Catalina and I can't share my screen on video calls anymore. Anyway, so here we have this app. It's pretty much what you'd expect. Nothing special. What I want to do is I want to fetch data from an API that is type safe and predictable. The API I want to use is the Giffy, that API. And how we'll do it is we'll do it using RESTful React. So I have it installed in the project already. Step one to using RESTful React is you wrap your whole app in a provider, and this thing gives context to the rest of the app. So how we'll do that is I will just, since I have TypeScript, I don't even need to import anything. I can just RESTful. It's making me import it, of course. You know, I feel like sometimes it just wants to make fun of me, the TypeScript compiler, from RESTful React. So we have a RESTful provider, and it says, hey, base is missing. It needs a backend host to talk to. So we're going to talk to ps api.giffy.com/v1, and that's it. That's all the bootstrapping I need to do. And now my app, if I hot reload, nothing will change at all, which is what I want. And what I want to do now is somehow predict the things that are available to me from Giffy. I will do that using the command line interface. So thanks for the amazing talk. I'm going to butcher his name. I apologize. Are you here, actually? You can say your name. Where is he? He's not here. Oh, there you are, yeah. I'm always looking over. How do I say your name? Shoru. Amazing talk with the CLI. I'm about to show you some CLI. It's not as pretty as, but whatever. We have RESTful React is also a CLI, and I'll import from GitHub. Is this the right syntax? Probably, yeah. RESTful React, yarn, RESTful React, import, and I'll import from GitHub. And I'll just type, username, repo, branch, file path. That's how it goes. So repo here, branch, file path. And I'll say I want to output to source/api.tsx. Right? So I import from, and this will actually connect to the GitHub API, fetch the file, and then use it internally for magic. So I'm going to hit that. It's going to do its work. This issue here was fixed by an external contributor, but I'm using an old version. I don't know why it says undefined. Someone figured it out and fixed it. And so now that it says my things have happened, let's go look here. And what I see is, oh, look, there's a new file. It's green, api.tsx. And this is generated from an open API document describing the Giffy or Giffy API. And so look at it. It's like massive, tons and tons. I don't even, and the cool thing is it exists. That's great. I don't even need to know what it says. I just want to know what Giffy can do for me. So how do I work with this thing? Import, destructure imports from my API file. And now if I use the auto-completion from TypeScript, I know what's available to me. So look at that. All of this stuff that I could play with. But this still isn't meaningful because some of it's interfaces, some of it's types. I want React hooks that give me data. How do I find hooks? Use. Look at that. That's just all of this I can just get from Giffy. I can do whatever. So let's try and use one. Let's use random GIF. Bam. GIF. Sticker. Oh, you want a sticker? Sticker. Use sticker. Use random sticker. There we go. Let's do it. And so I'm in the wrong file. Let's go do this in my app. So I'm still importing it here. And I will destructure. I don't know what I'm just getting some object. Use random sticker. Okay. And it's going to be invalid because it expects that. Some type of empty object containing a whole bunch of things. If we want to pass headers or whatever, we can. We don't really want to deal with any of that right now. They're all optional. And what I'm going to get back is data. I'll also get back loading, error states if I want to. And I'll do a little fragment here. Actually, let's do div. And I'll say, do I have an error? Then show me the error. Simple enough. Am I loading? write in a huge H2. I'm busy, go away. There. Angry ASCII face. And then lastly, if I have data, what do I want to do? I want to show the sticker. So I'll say alt, always use an alt tag sticker. And src is data dot, and look at this. I'm able to predict what I get from Giffy with this code gen tool. So data dot, okay, data again, I guess. I should maybe rename that. Dot, oof, all of this, just straight from the API. I want maybe the images dot, and you notice how this question mark is kind of just magically appearing. This is a new feature in TypeScript called optional chaining. If that's not available, just polyfill it to an empty object. It's pretty cool. Images dot original dot URL. And I think, okay, that's fine. The image tag is no longer red, which means this is what I want. And I'm going to save. Now when I save, what am I going to see? This is planned, don't worry about it. I need to show the error message, you see. But also, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. Why? What does 401 mean, my request friends? Not authenticate. I need an API key. Now, Giffy's API, I will publicly say, not very good. Security, because you get an API key from, I'm going to show you my API key and then revoke it after. It's fine. So I get this API key, right? And they just expect you to use it as a query param. Like, what's the point? I just open my network panel, I can see everybody's API key. I don't get it, but this is okay, if that's how you want to do it, Giffy. So I will globally here say query params, and I will pass an API key, is this, okay? And now, there we go, I have a random sticker. Right, and this works not just with. I just hope nothing NSFW happens. That's and it's with random sticker. I could even use random GIF if I want to. And again, it's just gonna do its thing. Bam! I'm hungry now. But yeah, that's how with TypeScript, with React, we're able to. If anyone asks you why TypeScript, that's why. You can create these things that make your velocity faster. Now, I will close with two things. Number one, we had budgeted 48 hours for a feature internally. Misha knows this. We planned to do something for 2 days, but with our RESTful React tooling that we built, it took us 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And I remember I was implementing this, and I just used our code gen and things, and 15 minutes I was done. I had to roll my chair back from the computer and go, what just happened? Whoa. Even for me, I was just I knew we had this. I did not realize it would have this much of an impact. And lastly, final question, why TypeScript over Flow? A lot of people have asked me this. Why TypeScript over Flow? And the best way I can answer this question is to go to a very popular project that everybody knows, this one. And I will just, here. Right, and so there's 39 occurrences in this code base alone of ways where Flow hasn't really met the need. And with TypeScript, I've never experienced this. And so with that, I want to wrap up here. I want to say, hey, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, thank you for listening. I realized I was the only one standing between you and drinks and food after. Conversely, you were the people standing between me and drinks after. But now that it's all over, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention.